just think that like we giving any oxygen to to the story of Don Lemon being in trouble for violating the FACE Act, when there's this when there's the issue of federal masked officers gunning down civilians in the street. It's like the Trump administration has won if they've succeeded in making Don Lemon the thing we talk about.
I see. And this is why you do not like that people are still talking about it.
Yeah.
Because it's unimportant to you.
I mean, in a slow news week, I suppose it might be a bit more important than a slow news week.
It hasn't?
It has not been a slow news week.
What has happened this week?
The House Oversight Committee has gotten a look at more of the unredacted Epstein files and has found 6 men who were redacted and should not have been redacted, but they can't tell us who they are. They can only say that they were, one of them is a very high profile, well-known figure, the other is like a president of some foreign country. Trump's call to for the GOP to nationalize elections. There's Ghislaine Maxwell pleading appearing before Congress and pleading the fifth to everything, but then declaring that she would answer forthrightly and honestly if granted a presidential pardon. That's a hell of a statement. Like any one of these things, I think would constitute a bigger story than Don Lemon potentially having violated the FACE Act.
Okay. Well, these things all happened recently. What about the Newsweek where the Don Lemon thing happened?
I think like Don Lemon being brought into custody is the bigger story there. Like rather than having been served subpoena and asked to appear before a court or something like that they actually like thought that they treated it like this, like something that they needed to haul him in for, is the bigger story there than like the underlying offense that Don Lemon may have committed.
Really?
And also, I mean, just the thing that they were protesting like that, it just happened, right? The death of Alex Pretty, like that happened the same week, right? That's the Don Lemon thing, because that's what they were there protesting.
I think Don Lemon happened several days later. Yeah.
So yeah, like I mean that seems like a gargantuan story compared to Don Lemon potentially violating the FACE Act.
I see. My libertarian ass is highly concerned that reporters might start to think this kind of thing is okay. Because even if I hope there is a ruling, because there needs to be a precedent set for this kind of thing. I personally think if you're explicitly withholding reportable details so that they can do the thing they're trying to do, you're participating.
just not sure that that is the case. It seems like there's just as much reason for him to withhold them for true journalistic reasons.
For true journalistic reasons, which are,
Not wanting to give steam to the protest, not wanting to attract more people to the protest that could then say, I came here because Don Lemon invited me.
why would that be a bad thing?
For him as a journalist,
For more people to join the fight?
it would be bad for Don Lemon to have given out the information that boosted the support of this. Like if their numbers going into this church were larger because of information that Don Lemon put out there to his followers, he could be held much more accountable for having interfered on behalf of the protesters, I would say, than if he withheld it to begin with. Wouldn't you say? Or do you understand that logic at all?
You're saying that reporting on it would bring his followers to the act, and so in that way he also interfered?
Yeah, he would have, like, I would say the government would have even more of a case for him having interfered on behalf of the protesters if he had taken the action that rallies more support or like gets, you know.
I disagree wholeheartedly, because agency exists, and so Don Lemon reporting on it, you're supposed to report. If he's trying to say that he withheld it so that more people wouldn't come to this thing, that doesn't seem like it adds up for A. And something else that I lost the thread of. Basically, so okay, I'm Don Lemon, and I have learned about this thing that's gonna go down somehow. I bring my crew. I go to the site before it happens, like the prep site, before it happens, to start reporting. If I'm Don Lemon and I know where we're going and when and what time, and I actively don't report that reportable information, then I am involved now. And I say that because you're withholding the truth from the people who could have stopped this as well. You were withholding information that you knew a crime was about to be committed, and you knew that, and you did not report that information. That's involved, and it may seem like a mouse fart in the wind, as far as I think my dad used to say that. Or I think I've heard him say that. Anyways, the topic may be one among a fire hose of other topics, but I do think it's important because
violation of the FACE Act, or that it was distinct from any other kind of protest.
Yes, Don Lemon might have been dumb enough not to know the FACE Act exists.
I mean, he's certainly proven himself dumb enough not to know what is appropriate to say on CNN amid a panel of female anchors. So yeah, I would not put it past him. I certainly, like, I mean, I'm no journalist, but I wouldn't, until you told me about the FACE Act, I had no idea what it was, and it seemed kind of an arbitrary weeding of dissimilar things into one sort of bucket, like the protection of people to observe their religious ceremonies and to provide abortion procedures. Like, yeah, I get that they're laws for a reason. I certainly don't want to violate them. I'm just like, when you say that Don Lemon knew that a crime was going to be committed, and it was his job to report that to his audience, I don't see how that would have been the right move. It seems like that would have had just as much potential to attract people to the event to come and make their own voices heard, which again would constitute his putting his own thumb on the scale more so than if he had withheld information to begin with.
Well, no, because if he had reported it, then people who might have been concerned about what was going to happen could have called the police, and the police could have come and put the ring around the church so that they could not do the crime.
I'm saying that, like, instead of reporting it out, it's instead of the right move on Don Lemon's part, if on the assumption that he knew that what these people were about to do constitutes a crime, a violation of the FACE Act, wouldn't the move have been to make that call to the police himself, just as a citizen? Why would it be his obligation to report it to his audience? I feel like that would, as I said, would be just as liable to increase support for the protest.
Because he's there in a journalistic capacity. So if you're not going to report the reportable details of this event during your live stream, then you are hiding something from the audience, and that means you're participating.
I mean, that is probably why they feel that they have a case, and why they were able to secure an indictment. Yeah, like if Don Lemon, if like a jury of Don Lemon's peers finds him in violation of the FACE Act, I have no problem with him being prosecuted.
Good, excellent.
I absolutely like apply the letter of the law without passion or prejudice. I don't think that is what the DOJ is doing, bringing this case in the way that they are against Don Lemon. I feel like this is their attempt, as is with so many other things in this performative administration, to make the story about something other than the federal overreach that is happening.
Sure. I mean, it might be convenient that they get to, but I think there's very clearly a case here that definitely needs to be followed through on.
So keep me posted with daily updates, because I give so many shits.
Exactly. See? And so this is why I'm screwed, because if there's a way to find the live footage, a capture of the live footage, I would really, really want to see all of that. I don't think they'll give it to us.
Yeah. And I don't
This is the picture I took of Artax in the rain.
Had to stay in court and, be, found guilty by a jury of his peers. I just, until that day comes, I don't see any reason to, pay a modicum of attention to this story.
Gotcha. Well, I think you did, and I too look forward to it playing out in court, so that there can be a precedent set, because I don't think you should be allowed to do that thing, even as a journalist, under the guise of journalism. I don't think that should be allowed for you to do. I think if you'd stayed outside, you might have had a case. If you'd stayed outside and reported on things. But you entered. So. I don't know. Anyways, we'll see it play out. That's how I feel about it. I too am not a legal scholar, but I can see why people are pissed, and I would like to see the end results, whenever the end results may come. Sadly, there's something new every week, so everything gets lost in the kerfuffle.
Fire hose news cycle.
Speaking of fire hose news cycles, is there anything new that you would like to talk about? Or else I had an action item, but we can do that action item anytime.
What's the action item?
Examples of liberal politicians using rhetoric during a time that was considered to be potentially violent? No. There was a reasonable expectation of violence at.
Please.
But what I think, I'm going to steel man your argument before you give it to me. You can tell me if there's anything I've missed.
Yeah.
I think what you are going to say to me is, okay, but still, his was based on a lie. That's what I think you're going to say.
Sounds like me.
Let me go back to my notes. Alright, so the LA riots in 1992, there was, the mayor said something. It was not an official speech, so it is not recorded perfectly anywhere that I can find. But there is chatter that the things that he said during a time where there was a reasonable expectation of violence, and then violence occurred. And of course, he denies that he meant it that way or any of those things. But it's a similar thing. But that's 1992. Also in 1992 with the LA riots, I think like a couple of days in, Maxine Waters or Marsha Waters or somebody Waters.
It was a Maxine Waters.
Maxine Waters, but then it's probably her. Maxine Waters had some particularly gritty words to say, and that's already while there's fighting going on, so that definitely felt inflammatory. But then I guess in 2021, also Maxine Waters
as in like, you do not give us justice, we have no reason to keep the peace.
Basically. Yeah, if you're not gonna give us justice, we're gonna give you no peace.
Well, and you're right about that, my counter argument would be, would definitely allude to, the fact that in one case it's a noble, social justice cause, like the Derek Chauvin trial, like, the George Floyd death, that was, I mean, unacceptable, obviously, like,
Yeah.
you know, murdering a, suspect in broad daylight, you know, who's begging for his life while your knee is on his neck, like, and that's a social justice cause that we can all get behind. That doesn't excuse, any violence, I think, committed. I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, as a blanket statement, I'm just always in favor of resolving things by more peaceful means, but, you know, that's, I think I've mentioned this many times that like, that's easy for me to say as a person who's never watched, someone who looks like me, with someone's knee on their neck while they suffocate, you know, beg for mercy in broad daylight. Now, maybe I could have said that until a couple weeks ago when several folks who look like me have been gunned down in the streets at the hands of federal officers. But like, I digress. It is definitely an important factor that one of these causes is a noble cause of social justice, and another is a complete fabrication and incitement to violence. Based on just like a
You're
tyrant's
saying
desire.
none of their violence is justified. That's what I'm hearing. That is what I'm hearing. Why am I, no, hang on. Am I hearing it that way?
No, I've been very careful not to say that. Like, I've been very careful to,
No, that's just
say
no,
that it would,
not those words specifically, that's the feeling I'm getting, but that means I'm misunderstanding it.
I mean, I always have, like, anytime I talk about the, something like the George Floyd, protest or Black Lives Matter or, you know, something that is for a cause that, I'm not, that does not affect my community, that like, any condemnation I have for violence committed on behalf of this movement, I'm just not in any position to, suggest that there's a better way, there's a more peaceful way to achieve these things, when I'm not,
I see.
you know, my community's not affected. So, but I don't think that's tantamount to me saying that violence is justified. It's just, I acknowledge, you know, like that South Park episode where, the solution to, the N-word problem, is admitting I don't get it. I get that I don't get it.
Yes, perfect. Oh, Trey Parker, that's
But yeah, I would say that in the case of a statement like the fight like hell to, where you're not gonna have a country anymore, in reference to, the fabrication of a fake of a stolen election, just night and day differences I see.
Huh, okay, so I don't even have to discard that.
Yeah, I don't condone violence in any case, but like, in the case of Donald Trump, like violence for the purpose of appeasing the ego of some tyrant, that's just not something that should happen in a developing nation.
So, what you're saying is that in either case, violence is not justified.
more or less what she stands for. I think that if they were both found guilty, if Maxine Waters was found guilty for incitement to violence and Donald Trump was also found guilty of incitement to violence based on their statements, I would think that as a jury member, even just like observing, as an objective observer of the facts of the case, I would I would recommend a much stiffer sentence for Donald Trump, just because of the absolutely unnecessary nature of the violence that he stoked.
That makes it feel like
Some violence is necessary.
yeah, but no, because we're talking about am I to understand that if they were both tried and convicted of incitement to violence, you'd be fine with that? You just think that whatever Donald Trump's sentence is, it should be much more harsh than the other ones, than the other person's.
Yeah, but if the jury's taking motive into account, like one's got a noble cause, the other does not have a noble cause, or anything close to it.
But you're saying that's something that should be considered in the law.
I think it is. I think that has a lot to do with a juror's perceived culpability of the defendant's perceived culpability in the eyes of the jury. It has a lot to do with these details about why they did what they did.
Yeah, I really hope Jack Smith gets a chance at it, or someone gets a chance at it, because it's what seems obvious, and what seems obvious in this scenario is Donald Trump. What are we talking about?
Maxine Waters and Donald Trump going to trial and being found guilty and perceived culpability in the eyes of the jury and the sentencing. And it's
One should be heavier than the other. Oh, so the fact that Donald Trump has the influence he does over so many people as a personality is so unique. And I feel like now that we have a society where this kind of thing is much more prevalent, we should be wary of it and perhaps push harder upon people who wield so much power without honor.
yeah. To figure out how we can do that. I guess.
Well, the thing is, yeah, most of his reasoning for that is that Trump continuously is the one that kept putting things out. So if he, if he knows it was a, if he knows he, we were just talking about.
What he was saying about the stolen election was a lie, is that what you're about to say?
Yes. If he knows what he was saying is a lie, he needs to be severely punished. And if he doesn't know that what he's saying was a lie, he still needs to be punished. Perhaps not as severely, but he still needs to be punished. We cannot allow that kind of person to be in charge of things.
Amen.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I think that, it is my opinion that Donald Trump knew full well, that what he was saying was a lie, and I think there's enough, evidence even in the, Georgia transcript, to suggest that even if he believed this in his heart, he was at least willfully ignorant of the facts of the case, the facts that, Brad Raffensperger, as well as his trusted staff members whose job it was to keep, tabs on the election, that they were all, telling him the truth of the matter, and he just rejected them, or rejected their, statements that didn't jive with what he wanted. That constitutes enough of a, willful ignorance that could be just as,
I think it's important that these things get rolled into the law and precedented. So I'm really hoping that once Trump leaves office, hopefully in 2026 when we impeach him, no, it'll probably be next year if that happens.
yeah. Wait, this is, that's right, we are in 2026 now. The midterms in November, so yeah, any action that comes out of, winning the majority, God willing, would, likely play out into 2027.
Still, I really hope that they pursue it because I don't think it's good at all that someone of this mindset is in charge. Someone refusing to hear all of the evidence or whatever, that's not okay.
I don't like that someone of this mindset who has taken these actions is not in jail, is not in prison serving a very long sentence, let alone being in charge. But I'll take impeachment. I'll take just some kind of verdict, some official declaration by the judicial system that what Donald Trump did in the lead up to the January 6th insurrection was bad and illegal, and here's the precedent that we must all abide by to ensure this never happens again.
Someone's offering you information, you must accept it. Someone credible is offering you information. You cannot prevent them from telling you that information.
It's the analogy I came up with the other day is the Simpsons episode. There's a scene where Homer's in a hurry to get somewhere, and he just plows through a red light while closing his eyes and saying, "If I don't see it, it's not illegal. If I don't see it, it's not illegal." To me, his actions to overturn the election are like Homer closing his eyes while plowing through the light.
Jesus Christ. I think Donald Trump might just be Homer Simpson, but if Homer Simpson had a shit ton of money his whole life.
Oh God. I mean, the only way I would push back is that Homer Simpson has glimmers of sincere moments. He genuinely cares about his family. He's just very selfish and stupid, and he's like Winston Churchill's statement about America that exhausted all other options. That's kind of what we're searching for.
Yeah, and the glimmers that I would call glimmers, you always look for the angle in, so they're not glimmers to you. Makes sense.
Wait, are we talking about Homer or Trump?
But
There are
Like,
glimmers of humanity
you're
in Trump.
you were saying where he differs is that Homer sometimes has glimmers of humanity. And I inferred that meant that Trump does not.
Correct.
And I went to refute that and say I think there are glimmers of humanity. You just disagree that that's what they are. Because you were looking for the game in the glimmer. Hashtag game in the glimmer.
Oh, speaking of hashtags, while you were on the phone with Jeremy, I looked back through I was looking at the why fit the hashtag. Have you thought about what the Fed?
The Fed. Like what the fuck, but what the Fed?
Yeah. Just thought of it. I didn't know if that was that had been on the list at all ever before, but
Have not, but I like it. I like its placement in. I like it. Nanobots get going on that. Okay.
yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Glimmers.
Game in the glimmer.
Game in the glimmer.
Game in the glimmer.
Yeah.
All that to say, I did do my due diligence and come back with some times where rhetoric resulted in some bad stuff and was said during a time where there was reasonable expectation of violence. There's considerably more that politicians say when there isn't a reasonable expectation of violence. That I still find to be problematic and embarrassing.
Inflammatory.
Inflammatory, yes. Incendiary. Incendiary is good. That's such a good word. Yes, that I find particularly incendiary, and I don't think it's good for the humanity.
Can't argue with that.
I mean, you could, but you don't have to. Um, Apparently my only focus from now to Tuesday is this new campaign pitch.
Yeah.
My only focus. He has sent out a mass text to everyone saying, do not bother Jessica unless absolutely necessary.
He even instructed you to get a good night's sleep tonight.
Well, that will probably happen actually.
Yeah, it could be very Cardian.
I wrote this under action items. This has got to be something from our plot days, maybe. But I did eventually go back and look this up. I don't know what we were talking about that made me want to go look it up, though. So I wrote down Harry Reid got the filibuster in the Senate, and that allowed Trump to appoint Amy Coney Barrett without a 2/3 majority. And I think I might have been looking for instances where liberals did shit they shouldn't have, forgetting that people you might not want to be in charge might be in charge one day, and did the thing. And it is thusly the liberal agenda's fault. Now that's too inflammatory even, but I think that must
move of like depriving Obama of being able to seat a justice because it was in an election year, and then proceeded to, like under very similar conditions, the only difference being like Donald Trump's presidency was, only had a few more weeks left, to go ahead and have him nominate a Supreme Court justice after RGB's, Bader Ginsburg's, since he did that, the Republicans have to expect that, Democrats are not gonna stand, are absolutely going to seat, their next seat as Supreme Court justice, the next time they get an opportunity, election year or not. And thus, like, Mitch McConnell could have done, favors for his party long term by simply, respecting the very precedent that he established for the Obama years.
Does that have anything to do with the filibuster?
To mention Amy Coney Barrett, I'm not sure if she's the justice that was sat in the, to replace, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I mean, perplexing, I believe. Who replaced RBG on the Supreme Court? Yeah, it was Amy Coney Barrett. So, that must mean, like, yeah, what is, was there something shady involving Senator Harry Reid and the filibuster, that allowed for Amy Coney Barrett to be sent? Nothing directly involving Harry Reid changed the rules for Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation, but an earlier move he had helped set the stage. What Reid actually did was in 2013, Majority Leader Harry Reid and Senate Democrats used the so-called nuclear option to lower the, cloture threshold from 60 votes, to a simple majority for most, presidential nominations, but they explicitly exempted Supreme Court nominees and legislation. After that change, Supreme Court nominees still required 60 votes to overcome a filibuster until Republicans later altered the rules. Barrett's confirmation was enabled in 2017. Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans extended the nuclear option to Supreme Court nominees, eliminating the 60-vote filibuster and allowing confirmation with a simple majority. Oh yeah, because Democrats would have, if there had been the requirement to get, the, two-thirds, if they needed that sizable majority to beat filibuster, then obviously the Democrats are gonna be like, no, we are not going to let you, seat the Supreme Court justice, it is our turn to do so. And so like the fact that the Republicans extended the nuclear option, why would they extended the nuclear option to Supreme Court nominees? Okay, it had only applied, it did not apply to Supreme Court, nominees in the past, it only, or legislation, it had only applied to the cloture threshold presidential nomination. I guess confirmation of your cabinet members, they no longer require, okay, yeah, they no longer require 60 vote, majority threshold. It's just a simple majority, that which, explains why people like RFK Jr., have been able to pass, Senate confirmation. So yeah, like I guess when it came time to replace RBG, the Senate Republicans went ahead and were like, hey, that, option that, that you guys vote on, presidential cabinet appointees. We are going to, use the nuclear, we're gonna extend the nuclear option to cover Supreme Court justices. And look at that, RBG decides that we get to use this new, power right now and seat Amy Coney Barrett. And yeah, that'll establish a precedent that, but we'll pretty much just like get both parties, farther from agreeance and, more power grabby than ever before. So way to go, Mitch McConnell and the Republican Party is what I'm hearing.
Way to go, Harry Reid is what I'm hearing.
For like, setting the precedent that, would, that would prompt Mitch McConnell to do something similarly shady.
Well, just getting rid of the filibuster in general, like the concept of getting rid of the filibuster, messing with that concept is what started this whole thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds,
So, and getting rid of the filibuster is a huge problem in the balance of power, I think.
it certainly has seemed, it seems to, make things even more partisan, like, makes lawmakers less inclined to, reach across the aisle and actually convince their, counterparts of, their cross-party counterparts, of anything, when they can just, be like, I've got the majority, so Republicans rule, Democrats rule, near, not realizing that, yeah, midterms in November, midterms in November.
Yeah. The idea that someone can sit there and talk for as long as they can in order to prevent disappointment, and in order to override that, you need this many votes. Sorry, I can hear.
I can
Can
hear
you hear?
that. Yeah.
Oh, so sorry, Joe.
Reed's 2013 action was a highly controversial rules change, but it did not by itself change the standard.
Yeah, he's snoring. We're good. Sorry.
I was reading
That
it.
just threw me off. I don't know where we went.
Oh, that's good. So filibuster in this case, I don't think means, talking, like, not talking for so long that you prevent a vote, like, that's.
Oh, really?
not- Yeah, I think that just, like, filibuster in this case just means, since a 60 vote, or since like a 2/3 majority is required, the party, the party with less votes, like even if the Democratic Party has less, votes, they know that they still have enough votes that, the Republicans cannot get, the minimum 2/3 majority, so that is them filibustering, is like just saying, nope, we're just going to refuse to go along with, to negotiate. And I wanna make sure, like, does filibuster in this context, what does filibuster mean? What does filibuster mean in this context?
La 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 la.
In this context, filibuster is a tactic a group of senators can use to delay or block a it so that the supermajority cannot vote for cloture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's instead of simple majority. So yeah,
Yes.
it's, so yeah, you're
They
right,
fucked
your
us,
interpretation.
my opinion. He fucked us.
Yeah. I got no dog in this fight.
I mean, neither do I really. I don't remember this at all, but.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was super shady that, Mitch McConnell, used the logic, in Obama's presidency that because it's an election year, we need to, we can't let the Democrats, seat a justice and then, not follow that exact same logic when it was his turn.
Mm-hmm.
That's to me, that could not be more clear cut of a, contradiction in values.
If you're gonna do it, we're gonna do it.
It's impressive.
Yeah, which is why it's a negative feedback loop and this is why the reset. Reconvene the Constitutional Convention is a hashtag. Or at least something that feels that vibe.
Yeah. Fresh start. Put on our heavy coats and wigs and eat out in Philadelphia with no air conditioning.
I'm still honestly reeling from learning about how you've never seen National Treasure.
Wow.
And it gave me a thought that what if people decide they enjoy this content and it gets to a point where that could matter? Wait. God damn it.
Think about it while I get another notebook.
Cool. This is gonna take forever. Okay. Get back there. I was going to talk about National Treasure. Okay, so National Treasure. Oh, and how he hasn't seen it. And so we should do it would be fun to do a watch party with you if we ever got it.
Got it?
Yes. I think if this ever became something that people enjoy and want more of, one of the things we could do is have a watch party where everybody's watching National Treasure with you. And I will heavily disclaimer at the front end, do not expect him to enjoy this film. Do not be disappointed if he does not enjoy this film.
Did you see my reaction to it in real time?
In real time, yeah.
Yeah. I'd be absolutely flattered if people were interested in my reaction to National Treasure.
I honestly think people would be interested in any new person's reaction to National Treasure. Especially if they like them as a human, so
Okay.
God, I'm not on internet. You're not on the socials. So then on TikTok, there's
I have
this
full
guy
stamina,
on
like,
TikTok.
you can't get
I
more
wish
stamina
I
than
could
that. I like
their
still like
names.
it for,
But the concept is they listen to a song that millennials have long since been familiar with. And shit, this is amazing. Oh my god, did you hear what they just did? And then they'll pause the song and they'll recreate it, and then they'll press play again. And so you're watching them react to hearing this particular song for the first time. And you already have such a love story with this song, so seeing somebody totally new react to it is a context that is enjoyable.
Yeah, it's,
These guys are awesome about it. Sometimes it's hard to suspend disbelief, but
so these guys are younger. Like these are songs
much
that,
younger.
that we grew up on with these like Gen Zers that.
Yeah. Or like their most something like that. Or maybe they've never listened to anything other than something else. I'm not sure. But regardless of the why, they've never heard this song before. Evanescence was one of them recently, and I was delighted by that whole thing. They need to do Linkin Park next if they haven't. Okay. So National Treasure. And we should watch Party. So table it. Let's not watch it until either the third one comes out, or maybe around the third one. That could be one of the like promo things. They could pay you to do it.
Wow, yeah. Let's shoot for the moon here. Is Nicolas Cage gonna be in the third one?
If he's not, there wouldn't be an actual National Treasure 3.
I mean, like, I guess, yeah, I'm just thinking in terms of like, The Witcher happened, The Mummy happened with Tom Cruise. Like,
Oh yeah, nobody counts those. Nobody counts Home Alone 3.
no, you're right, he wasn't in that one. Did I really see Home Alone 3?
I don't think any of us did. I think it was a Witcher season 4 situation.
Wow. I guess, yeah, it's hard to, I mean, I think they really took a giant leap, recycling the concept in New York. Like, I mean, they really had to, do some acrobatics to give him, to make it the same two bandits, you know, Merv and Harry or whatever, that, are the villains, but also give this kid who is in a city, doesn't know access to a home that happens to be in renovation from a family member, that he could set up a bunch more traps in. Like that, even that was, you have to kind of detach your brain to make that possible, but like doing that a third time with the same cast, that is just, I can see why they didn't even attempt it.
Well, no, they did it. They did it the third time. They just didn't use the same cast
Right, like, and that.
or the same boy. They didn't use the same boy. I think Merv might have. I think the bandits might have been in there.
I don't think they were, because one of them was female, I remember.
Oh, I
Alice
definitely
Springs.
didn't see it.
She was like the boss. But yeah, like I can see, I can see the concept of Home Alone, home robbers and a crafty kid who outwits them with a series of elaborate traps. Like I can see that concept being repurposed, and of course it has been.
And
But
like
like
this
pulling the same
thing.
thing off a third time with Kevin McAllister and Mervyn Harry, that just there's just no way that you could pull that off and have people.
Yeah.
I know a lot of things about the original Home Alone are not believable. The notion that once he made them, once Kevin McAllister clearly like spotted them and made the connection that these gold tooth cop is the same person who's about to rob their home, that they would even try to rob the home after that is absolutely ludicrous.
That he wouldn't call the police is ludicrous to me.
Yeah,
Like-
exactly.
Like, they may think, okay, there's a child at home, we can deal with the child, let's rob the place anyways. But like, that Kevin McAllister he knew to call the police with the running water next door thing, but didn't call the police when he learned some people were gonna rob his house.
Yeah, that's cops are in on it, the cops are in on this racket, I won't be doing myself any favors by reporting this, to the cops, but by that same logic, why would we call the cops for the water thing next door? Like, if the cops are the bad guys,
Yeah.
and it's a moot point if you didn't even make any statement to it. So this is why I'm not calling the cops, because I've made this connection, you know, if they didn't.
It's just so fun.
What's fun?
The movie, Home Alone.
Yeah,
It's just
I-
because it's just so fun.
Yeah.
Fun to watch.
Yeah.
Did you have any other political or non-political stuff or things? I know you riddled off a few.
Yeah, so did you know about Trump's calls to nationalize, he appeared on, the Dan Bongino podcast, Dan Bongino being Fox News, host turned, assistant, deputy attorney general turned, I think, yeah, he either resigned or was fired, is now back to podcasting, but, he had the president as a guest, and President called for the nationalization. He said, like, Republicans should call for these state level elections to be run by the feds, essentially, which is something that I think you could not possibly agree with.
No. No. Neep.
Okay.
Super dumb. And I feel like I think that's got as much momentum as damn it, the other thing.
I
Oh,
thought you were going to take a southern analogy, like nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs or something.
there's just these vortexes where my mind dumps out. What were we just talking about?
Whether I had any political stuff, things, nationalizing the elections.
Nationalizing elections.
Um,
Oh, yes, and I feel like that's the same as like the voter ID stuff they were saying before. Like, it's just something to say. I don't actually think that he's going to do this, and if he does actually do this, there's no. Not gonna say that. I'm not gonna put that in either. The governors cannot let this happen. The executive branch does not need any more power. The federal government does not need any more power. Please do not do this. Do not let it happen.
yeah, there'd be so much uproar. I really don't think there's any danger of it happening. I mean, like,
I don't either.
his motivation could not be more transparent too. I mean, he's mentioning he's talking specifically about the states where he lost in 2020, where he constantly, battled to have those results overturned. It would be so much simpler if the feds, if like he were essentially the final decider in the vote counts of any of these places, and he didn't have to haggle with guys like Brad Raffensperger about their vote counts.
I feel like Trump is just these unseen billionaires puppet for putting in place a way to rig elections legally. Like, that's just what it feels like. That's not great. Don't like that. That's no bueno. Wipe the slate. Oh, we gotta get it before 2026.
Why before 2020? Well, Like you do.
like you do.
But yeah, that was one political stuff and things. I did want to briefly mention or briefly discuss the Caitlin Collins interaction. I mean, I guess this is Epstein related. Caitlin Collins being a CNN journalist who is a frequent underskin getter of Donald Trump. And his latest reaction to her, like her calls for so in the wake of the latest trove of Epstein files that were released with redactions that didn't necessarily fit muster, and plus a whole trove of documents that have not been released, and no reason has been given for their non-release. Caitlin Collins asked, in a press conference where Trump's message was basically like, this last release is pretty much the end of the line, last chapter. We can pretty much put this whole matter to bed now once and for all. I think every press conference he's made a statement similar to that about the Epstein files, but in this case, Caitlin Collins fired back with something like, what would you say to the victims, to the survivors who have still not felt that justice has been served, and that the people who hurt them are still allowed to remain anonymous, something to that effect. And Trump cuts her off with something to the effect of, such a nasty reporter, you should smile more. I've known this girl for 10 years. I don't think I've ever seen her smile. Which is, so relevant to the question that he just asked. And so very not sexist at all, I suppose.
I wish in those moments the reporters could have some sort of solidarity, and if he ignores that reporter's question, let the next reporter's question be exactly that same thing again, and let it be that question until he fucking answers it.
But what's happening is he's stacking the deck with the reporters that are going to ask him nice questions. And Carolyn Leavitt, anytime she holds a press conference, she goes immediately, the first question goes to the friendliest face in the room, who's going to say something like, our left-wing colleagues are so up in arms about this latest trove of Epstein files, and I have to wonder, where was all this outrage when it came to hiding the mental capacity of Joe Biden? Which,
The reporter asks that question?
Yeah.
Really?
A Trump-friendly reporter, yes. Taking the attention off of the Epstein saga and putting it on the Biden cover-up. Yeah, that's exactly what they want.
I need a list now, because that does not sound like something a journalist would say. I need a.
Who said anything about a journalist? These are the reporters that the White House has invited to the press conference, to the press, to be part of the press corps.
But all the other ones are still there.
I wonder if, well, are they?
Right?
I don't know who's responsible for allowing, the fact that Caitlin Collins still is able to get in, has a credential to get into those rooms, means that Trump is not taking drastic actions yet, I guess. I feel like some organizations have been disallowed, but I think what they've mostly done is move in the direction of lowering the standards of who's allowed in the room. I don't know what the standards were before, but the fact that Newsmax is able to get in the room, they're took.
I think they just added a lot of people
Yeah.
rather than removed.
Subtract. Yeah. But yeah, they've got some real Trump-friendly journalists in there, so I just think your dream of solidarity when it comes to a question like that, less and less likely by the day.
I need
tell the truth, to only not plead the fifth if she can be granted a presidential pardon, or clemency, which I guess is different.
Yes, that's different. Pardon means your record is expunged.
Clemency just means you get out.
Clemency is your time has been served. Your time is considered served. I think that's what the
That's
distinction
so
is.
many of these years.
So is that officially something that has been asked for? Like these are real things.
Yeah, her official statement has been playing all over the news that she'll be asserting her Fifth Amendment privileges and to all questions unless she can be promised clemency by Donald Trump.
And did someone confirm that she did indeed plead the fifth
Yeah,
for every
will.
question?
I don't know that she's on camera doing it, but yeah.
No, just somebody else's account saying yes, she did in fact plead the fifth as she said she was going to.
So I'm not clear on whether she's said before Congress. Yeah, let's perplex this real quick.
Yeah. Cause I could have sworn she did.
Has appeared recently before Congress. If so, did she plead the fifth to everything? Yes, Ghislaine Maxwell has very recently appeared before Congress via a closed door virtual deposition with the House Oversight Committee focused on Jeffrey Epstein and related files. She appeared under subpoena before the House Oversight Committee in early February 2026, speaking from federal prison. In the deposition, she repeatedly said some version of "I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence" and refused to answer questions about Epstein, their relationship, alleged co-conspirators, or specific conduct. Lawmakers and reporters present or briefed afterward described her as effectively answering no substantive questions and providing no new information. With regard to did she plead the fifth to everything, as I asked, reports say she invoked the Fifth Amendment repeatedly, more than a dozen times, and refused to answer any questions put to her about Epstein and related matters. Both committee chair James Comer and the ranking Democrat Robert Garcia publicly stated that she answered no questions about her